When we introduced negative numbers, we said that each negative number is the opposite of a positive number. So for example, -6 is the opposite of 6. And we thought of this in terms of direction. We saw this on a number line, where positive is to the right and negative is to the left. In another context, we might say positive is upward or negative is downward. Another common place that we meet negative numbers is when we're talking about finance. In a financial context, we might say positive is money that's added to an account, sometimes called a debit, and negative is money that's subtracted from an account, a credit. In all of these senses, we really understand what opposite means in terms of our intuitive notion of an opposite. The opposite of going to the right is going to the left. The opposite of going upward is going downward. The opposite of getting money is spending money. This also lets us make sense of the opposite of a negative number. The opposite of a negative number is just the corresponding positive number. So for example, the opposite of -9 would just be +9. We can also make sense of the opposite of 0 in this context, although it's kind of boring. 0 is its own opposite. When you think about it for a moment, again, that makes sense. If the distance I travel is 0, I'm just staying in one place. It doesn't matter what direction I'm traveling. We can use the language of algebra to describe how we denote the opposite of a number. In the language of algebra, we can say, for any number a, we write a negative sign followed by a to mean the opposite of a. How do we understand what we just wrote? If a represents the number 6, in other words, if a equals 6, then -a means -6, which is just -6. If a represents the number -9, that is, if a equals -9, then -a means the opposite of -9. The opposite of -9 is just +9. Finally, if a represents the number 0, that is, if a equals 0, then -a just means the opposite of 0, which is just 0. So writing a negative sign in front of any old number means taking its opposite. And notice that this symbol, -a, may or may not represent a negative number. The opposite of a positive number is negative. The opposite of a negative number, however, is positive. And the opposite of 0 is just 0.